Echoes of Chaos Chapter 3 The Crossings of Fate. The rhythmic mechanical beep, beep, beep of Tom's heart monitor continued to pace the agonizing silence of room 412. Sonic hadn't moved from his plastic footstool. His fingers remained tightly laced around Tom's pale, motionless thumb, as if his own fading chaos energy could somehow jumpstart his father's recovery. Every few minutes Tom's chest would heave under the oxygen mask with a shallow, ragged sigh, but his eyes stayed resolutely shut, locked deep beneath the heavy veil of medical anesthesia. Maddie sat on the edge of the mattress, her hand gently resting on Sonic's trembling shoulder, while her other hand reached up to smooth down Tom's messy brown hair.
"You need to rest, sweetie,"
Maddie whispered, her voice thick with exhaustion as she looked down at the blue hedgehog.
"You've been holding his hand for hours. Your quills are still covered in soot."
"I can't,"
Sonic murmured, his voice sounding hollow, devoid of its usual energetic bounce. He didn't look up from Tom's hand.
"If I let go, what if he slips away? What if I wasn't fast enough to save him, Mom? I was up there playing hero in space, and he was down here bleeding."
"Sonic, look at me,"
Maddie said softly, gently tipping his chin up until his bloodshot, emerald eyes met hers.
"You stopped a weapon that was going to destroy the whole planet. Tom knew the risks when he stood up to protect you. He wouldn't want you blaming yourself for this."
Behind them, Tails was huddled in the corner of the room, his knees pulled to his chest as he ran diagnostic sweeps on a stolen June medical tablet, trying to monitor the hospital's internal secure network. Knuckles stood like a massive, unyielding statue against the closed door, his arms crossed over his chest, his eyes fixed on the hallway window.
"The human guards outside are anxious."
Knuckles noted quietly, his deep voice vibrating through the sterile room.
They speak into their radios in hurried whispers. The city of London is in a state of mass confusion, yet their primary concern seems to be our presence here.
"Let them be anxious.
Tails sighed, his fox ears drooping flat against his head.
As long as they leave us alone. I've encrypted our room security feeds so GUN Command can't spy on us. But Sonic, my sensors are picking up massive military movements at the local airfields. GUN is locking down the entire airspace over the Atlantic."
Sonic didn't answer. He just squeezed Tom's thumb tighter, a fresh tear cutting through the dirt on his cheek. His mind was split in two. Half of his heart was breaking for the father who wouldn't wake up, and the other half was trapped in the cold, silent void of space, mourning the dark hedgehog who had given everything to ensure they had a world to come back to. Thousands of miles away, the dark sky over the North Atlantic was a freezing, turbulent expanse of black clouds and roaring wind. A sleek experimental GUN stealth transport jet sliced through the atmosphere at Mach 3, its cloaking panels rendering it entirely invisible to civilian radar. Inside the pressurized cargo hold, surrounded by rows of heavy armored crates and high-tech weaponry, a shadow detached itself from the ceiling. Shadow dropped silently onto the metal floor, landing in a perfect soundless crouch. His physical condition was deteriorating, the frantic infiltration of the desert outpost, followed by a high-risk extraction where he had clung to the landing gear of this very jet during takeoff, had pushed his exhausted biology to its absolute threshold. The red stripes on his quills flickered with a faint, unstable static, and every breath tasted like copper. But his ruby eyes were sharp, blazing with an unyielding, desperate focus. He moved toward the transport's primary avionics bay, his gloved fingers swiftly popping open the wiring. Schematic. Using his left wrist inhibitor to bridge the connection once more, he bypassed the pilot's cockpit controls, routing the automated navigation data directly into his mind. Flight path confirmed. Transatlantic Route 04 estimated time to arrival, London Sector 42 minutes. Shadow leaned his head against the cold steel hull of the aircraft, his chest heaving as the jet rattled through a pocket of heavy turbulence. 42 minutes. 42 minutes until he landed in the territory of his captors, the very people who had hunted him, imprisoned him, and erased his past. He knew the risks. The moment he stepped foot into London, every GUN tracker on the continent would light up. He would be entirely outnumbered, severely weakened, and completely lacking the Chaos Emeralds to defend himself. But as the stealth jet roared closer to the British coast, Shadow didn't care about his own survival. He didn't care about a safe haven or a new life in hiding. The phantom weight of his final moments with Sonic in the upper atmosphere and the agonizing memory of the human sheriff collapsing in the hallway urged him forward through the dark. He had to face the storm he had created. He had to know if there was any forgiveness left in the world he had chosen to save. The turbulence grew more violent as the stealth jet descended into the lower atmosphere over the English Channel. Rain lashed against the armored hull, a heavy, rhythmic drumming that sounded like the frantic pounding of a heartbeat. Inside the cargo hold, Shadow stood unmoving, his air shoes locked onto the metal floor plates, his gaze fixed on the red tracking line blinking across the navigation terminal, approaching London airspace, preparing for automated landing sequence. Shadow's fists clenched. His body was practically screaming for rest. The internal reserves that fueled his speed were completely empty, and his chest felt tightly constricted beneath his fur. But the psychological weight was heavier. With every mile the aircraft chewed through, the moment of truth crept closer. He looked down at his right hand. He could still feel the raw, tearing friction of the Eclipse cannon's core as he had strained against its mass. He had done it for Maria. He had done it because Sonic had shown him that love wasn't a weakness to be purged, but an anchor to hold on to. But if that realization had come too late, if the human sheriff had already succumbed to his injuries, then his redemption was stained with innocent blood. The jet shuddered violently as the landing gear deployed with a loud mechanical whine. Shadow didn't wait for the aircraft to come to a complete halt on the tarmac of the secure GUN airfield. As the cargo ramp began to slowly hiss open, cracking a sliver of the cold, rain-soaked London air into the hold, he dissolved into the shadows. He slipped past the ground crews and the automated perimeter sweeps, a black blur moving through the downpour. The city was a sprawling maze of flashing emergency lights and military blockades, but Shadow had already memorized the coordinate vector. St. Thomas Hospital. Back in room 412, the atmosphere had grown completely stagnant. The rain outside beat against the heavy glass window, matching the dreary, exhausting rhythm of the medical equipment. Tails had finally closed the GUN tablet, his small hands resting on his knees.
The encryption is holding.
He whispered softly, breaking the hours-long silence.
GUN Command still thinks this floor is completely locked down by their own automated security protocols. They don't know we're fully in control of the sector's speed.
Good.
Maddie murmured, though her voice lacked any real triumph. She hadn't taken her eyes off Tom's face. She had pulled a second chair close to the bed, her fingers lightly tracing the lines of Tom's palm.
They'd only try to move him, and he can't be moved right now.
Sonic hadn't shifted an inch from his footstool. His chin was rested on the edge of the mattress, his eyes staring blankly at the plastic oxygen mask fitting over Tom's face. The green glow of the monitors washed over his face, making his dull, unsparking blue quills look almost gray in the shadows.
Sonic.
Knuckles spoke up from his position by the door, his deep voice dropping to a low rumble that didn't disturb the quiet.
You have not consumed sustenance, nor have you closed your eyes since we departed the sky. Even the most resilient warriors must allow their spirits to recover.
I'm fine, Nux.
Sonic said, though his voice cracked on the final word. He didn't have the energy to fake a quip or bounce around. He just felt entirely hollow.
I keep thinking about how fast I can run. I'm the fastest thing alive. I can cross continents in seconds. But right now, sitting here, I've never felt so slow in my entire life. I can't do anything to speed this up.
A heavy tear fell from his eye, soaking into the white sheets.
In Shadow.
Sonic swallowed hard, his throat burning.
He's just up there. alone, in the dark. He saved the whole world, and nobody down here even knows his name. They just think he was a weapon.
Maddie reached across the bed, her hand gently resting over Sonic's small fist.
We know his name, Sonic. And we know what he did. He's a hero. Just like you.
Sonic closed his eyes, leaning into her touch, letting the quiet hum of the hospital room envelope him. They were entirely isolated, cut off from their home in Green Hills, out of warp rings, and entirely at the mercy of the machines keeping Tom alive. He didn't use the main roads. Slipping into the freezing waters of the Thames, Shadow used the shadows of the concrete pylons to cross the river undetected, his breathing tight as the icy current battered his injured frame. He emerged on the hospital side, scaling a slick drainage pipe with agonizing slowness until he reached the exterior ledge of the third floor. His gloved fingers, caked in dried soot and river water, forced open a heavy maintenance window. He slid inside, dropping onto the sterile linoleum floor of a quiet utility corridor. The hospital smelled exactly like prison island sharp alcohol, ozone, and the underlying scent of chemical sedatives turned his stomach. Every instinct told him to run, to flee back to the isolation of the desert where no one could look at him and see a monster. But the image of the human sheriff's motionless body kept his feet moving forward. He moved through the corridors like a ghost, a black blur cutting through the dim auxiliary lighting. He didn't have the strength to fight a battalion of GUN soldiers if he was spotted. A single alarm would lock down the floor and cut off his only chance at finding the truth. Reaching a central monitoring terminal in a vacant nurse's station, Shadow pressed his palm against the glass interface. He didn't force a data link this time. His inhibitor rings were working at maximum capacity just to suppress his fluctuating vitals. Instead, he manually scrolled through the local floor directories, his eyes scanning the encrypted patient manifests. Floor 4 Intensive Care Unit Secure Lockdown. Room 412 Wachowski T. Shadow's heart skipped a beat against his ribs. Wachowski. The file didn't have a status marker. It didn't say stable, it didn't say deceased. It was a blank, terrifying void of information. Shadow pulled his hand back, his fingers trembling slightly as he looked toward the heavy double doors leading to the stairwell. The fourth floor was directly above him. Sonic was up there. The family he had shattered was up there. He didn't know if he was walking into a room of mourning or a room of recovery. He didn't know if Sonic would look at him with hatred or relief. But as he stepped onto the first stair, his hover skates giving off a faint, dying spark in the dark, Shadow knew he couldn't turn back. He had to face the consequence of his chaos. The metal stairs felt impossibly steep beneath Shadow's weighted boots. With every step he climbed toward the fourth floor, the sterile air seemed to grow colder, thick with a suffocating tension that made his chest tighten. His hover skates remained completely dark, their internal dynamos depleted, forcing him to rely entirely on raw, agonizing physical exertion. He reached the heavy fire door of the fourth floor and pressed flat against the concrete wall. Through the small, wire-reinforced glass window, he could see the corridor. It was bathed in the pale, clinical blue of the emergency lighting. 2 UN soldiers stood near the far end, their backs to him, speaking in hushed, anxious tones into their shoulder radios. They were terrified. The whole world was terrified. And he was the reason. Shadow closed his eyes for a fraction of a second, forcing his erratic breathing to slow. He didn't want to fight them. He couldn't fight them, not without risking the localized chaos explosion that his inhibitor rings were barely suppressing. He needed to pass through undetected. Slipping through the door as it clicked open, Shadow moved with the practiced stealth of a phantom. He utilized the deep shadows cast by the recessed vending machines and structural pillars, timing his movements to the rhythmic, heavy sweeping of the facility's overhead security. Cameras he knew the two-tailed fox had likely tampered with, though he couldn't be certain. He bypassed the guards, his heart hammering violently against his ribs. His ruby eyes locked onto the plastic room, numbers fixed to the wall. 409, 909, 412. He stopped directly outside the door. The wood was thick, but through the gap in the frame, the faint, repetitive sound leaked out into the hall. Beep, beep, beep. Shadow's hand hovered over the cold stainless steel handle. His white glove was stained with the dark ash of the Eclipse cannon, a stark contrast against the clean metal. The electronic pulse of the heart monitor was steady, but it told him nothing of the man's consciousness, nor the emotional destruction that might be waiting on the other side. Inside that room was Sonic, the boy who had shed tears for a rival in the vacuum of space. Inside was the woman who had screamed in absolute agony as her world collapsed in the London hallway. If he opened this door and saw a family broken beyond repair by his own hands, it would be a failure more permanent than anything Professor Gerald had ever designed. Shadow's fingers curled around the handle. He didn't push it yet. He stood in the quiet hallway, a solitary figure caked in the dust of a saved world and the sins of a forgotten past, taking one last deep breath before facing the family he had nearly destroyed. Shadow slowly pressed down on the handle. The latch gave a faint metallic click that, to his hypersensitive ears, sounded like a gunshot in the silent corridor. He pushed the heavy wooden door open just an inch, slipping into the dim room like a shifting column of smoke, letting the door click shut behind him without a sound. He stayed pressed against the shadows of the wall, his ruby eyes instantly adjusting to the gloom. The room was exactly as he had feared, a fortress of grief. The green glow of the GUN medical monitors washed over the small space. On the bed lay Tom Wachowski, completely motionless, the clear plastic of an oxygen mask fogging rhythmically with his shallow, sedated breaths. Sonic was right there, his blue form, small and unmoving on the footstool, his forehead pressed against the safety railing, his fingers still tightly laced around the human's thumb. Maddie sat on the mattress, her eyes closed, her hand resting on Sonic's back, while Tails and Knuckles kept their silent vigil in the corners. None of them noticed him at first. They were too deeply buried in the exhausting, heavy weight of their own exhaustion. Shadow looked at Tom's bandaged chest. The monitor's steady beep, 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 confirmed the man was alive, but the sight of the dark bruising on the sheriff's jaw made a sickening wave of remorse crash through Shadow's core. He had done that. He had targeted an innocent family out of a blind, inherited hatred that wasn't even his own. A sudden shift in the air made Knuckles' ears twitch. The echidna's eyes snapped open, locking onto the dark corner by the door. His massive fists instantly clenched, the metal spikes gleaming in the monitor light.
Who goes there?
Knuckles demanded, his deep voice a low, threatening rumble that instantly broke the silence of the room. Tails bolted upright, his fox ears pinning flat against his head as he reached for his modified tablet. Maddie's eyes snapped open in alarm. Sonic was the last to move. He slowly lifted his head from the mattress, his emerald eyes dull, swollen, and wet with dried tears. He turned his head toward the door, expecting to see a GUN guard or a doctor telling them they had to leave. Instead, the silhouette in the corner stepped forward into the pale green light of the monitors. Sonic's breath completely caught in his throat. His jaw fell open, his eyes widening to the size of saucers as the dull, gray look of his quills suddenly seemed to spark.
Shadow?
Sonic whispered. The dark hedgehog stood before them, a ghost returned from the vacuum of space. He looked terrible, his black fur was matted with river water and ash, his white chest fur was singed and bloody, and his left arm hung slightly stiff at his side. The golden inhibitor rings on his wrists hummed faintly, locking down the volatile energy that had nearly torn him apart. He looked completely exhausted, running on nothing but pure willpower, but his ruby eyes were clear, and they were fixed entirely on Sonic.
Sonic.
Shadow said, his voice a low, gravelly rasp that shook with an emotion he had never allowed himself to feel before. He looked from the blue hedgehog to the unconscious man on the bed, his chest heaving with a heavy, ragged breath.
I had to know.
The silence in the room was absolute, shattered only by the mechanical beep of the heart monitor, as the ultimate life form stood before the family he had almost broken, waiting for the storm to break. The room seemed to lose its gravitational pull. For a fraction of a second, the mechanical beep, 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 of Tom's heart monitor was the only indicator that time hadn't completely stopped. Knuckles slowly lowered his spiked fists, his fierce expression softening into an expression of profound, warrior-born awe. Tails let the medical tablet slip from his hands, landing onto his lap with a soft clatter, his mouth agape as his twin tails gave a stunned, involuntary twitch. Maddie's hand tightened on Sonic's shoulder, her eyes darting between the battered, dark hedgehog and the blue boy beside her. Sonic didn't just stand up. He practically fell off the plastic footstool, his legs shaking so violently they barely supported him. He took one step, then another, his emerald eyes locked onto Shadow as if the dark hedgehog might vanish into thin air if he blinked.
You're alive.
Sonic breathed, his voice cracking so deeply it was barely a whisper.
The cannon, the laser. I saw you burn out, Shadow. I saw you stay behind.
Shadow didn't offer a stoic, hardened glare. He didn't cross his arms or hide behind a mask of cold indifference. Since that final quiet moment on the surface of the moon when Sonic's words had shattered 50 years of parasitic rage and reconnected him to the gentle soul he had burned before G1 took Maria, Shadow's emotional walls were completely gone. He stood there entirely exposed, his chest heaving with shallow, ragged breaths, his ruby eyes wide and shimmering with an agonizing raw vulnerability.
I had to ensure the weapon was pushed beyond the atmospheric threshold.
Shadow said, his gravelly voice trembling openly. He took a slow, heavy step forward, his boots dragging against the linoleum.
But as I fell, all I could see was the darkness. I thought I had arrived too late.
Shadow's gaze shifted directly to Tom's peaceful, sedated face, and then down to the thick, pristine white bandages wrapping the sheriff's torso. A visible shudder ran through Shadow's frame, his shoulders slumping as a heavy, suffocating wave of remorse washed over his features.
I did that to him,
Shadow whispered, his voice fracturing as he looked back at Sonic. A hot, heavy tear escaped his ruby eyes, cutting a clean path through the caked ash on his muzzle.
I was blinded by a ghost's wrath. I came to your world to inflict the same wound that Gun inflicted on me. If he had ceased to breathe, Sonic, I would have become the very monster that stole Maria.
Shadow's gloved hands trembled at his sides, his fingers curling inward as he openly wept, the raw, emotional exhaustion of a 50-year-old grief and a newfound guilt completely breaking his ultimate life-form biology.
I am so profoundly sorry. I did not mean to break your family.
Sonic didn't hesitate. He didn't care about the bruises, the rogue G1 forces outside the door, or the sheer impossibility of how Shadow had survived a descent from the heavens. With an explosive, desperate burst of movement, Sonic crossed the distance between them and threw his arms around Shadow's neck. He slammed into Shadow's chest, hugging him with a fierce, white-knuckled grip that dug deep into the dark hedgehog's black and red quills. Sonic buried his face right into Shadow's caked, white chest fur, his own shoulders shaking violently as a fresh, roaring sob tore out of his throat. Shadow stiffened for a microsecond, unaccustomed to the sudden, overwhelming warmth of a physical embrace. But as Sonic clung to him like a lifeline, weeping for the brother he thought he'd lost to the stars, the last remnants of Shadow's isolation dissolved. He wrapped his arms around Sonic's smaller frame, pulling the blue hedgehog tightly against his chest, burying his face into Sonic's blue quills as they stood in the green glow of the hospital room, sharing a grief and a relief that only the two of them could ever truly comprehend.
You didn't break us.
Sonic choked out through his tears, his fingers gripping the back of Shadow's singed skin.
You saved us. You saved everyone, Shadow. He's gonna be okay. He's gonna wake up. You didn't take him away from me.
Tails wiped his nose on his arm, a watery smile breaking across his face as he watched them, while Knuckles simply closed his eyes, bowing his head in a silent prayer of gratitude to the protectors of the universe. Maddie watched the two hedgehogs from the bedside, her hand resting over her mouth, her heart breaking and healing all at once at the sight of the boy, who had almost destroyed her world, now holding her adopted son. Gratitude to the protectors of the universe. Maddie watched the two hedgehogs from the bedside, her hand resting over her mouth, her heart breaking and healing all at once at the sight of the boy who had almost destroyed her world now holding her adopted son like a brother. The storm outside London was still raging, but inside room 412, the chaos had finally found its peace.